And so is come is immediate and continuous. It's already happened. It's an established fact, but it hasn't stopped happening. So the judgment is come. It's already a present reality, but it's not finished, is what is being said here. So God is going to judge the righteous and the wicked. And in fact, according to this verse, it's already happening. And that makes sense because we know that from looking at Hebrews, that Christ went to the holy place when he entered heaven with his own blood, and he began ministering in the holy place. And then at the end of the prophetic 2,300 days, he entered in the most holy place and continued that process. You're quiet, but you didn't correct me. Oh, no? Okay. No. Is. When did that happen? When is this message?
18.
Okay, when he entered into the most holy place is the is. So this message happened, and in present time, the judgment is current and present then. Not before, right? Okay, so he's interceding before. So
it's like past perfect. It happened in the past, but it's continuing. Is that what you're
present
saying?
Perfect.
Present perfect.
Yes, it's present perfect. But the time of it said is when this message happened. Okay, the first angel gave the message of this present perfect when it was saying 1843, which ended up being 1844, which is the termination of the 2,300 days. So that time period is when the judgment began. I said it wrong and nobody caught me. Man.
Don't set us up like that.
It was a mistake. I'm sorry. I didn't intend to do that. I just am not perfect. Okay, but keep that in mind. Try to, I think Gene was going to jump on me if I went too much farther. Okay, so the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the fountains of waters. Okay, so why are we accountable to God for judgment? Is it perhaps because he made everything? Is that what it's saying?
Well, the judgment really is a judgment of God, not a judgment of us. I mean, it does include us, but the whole issue is the character of God, because the devil has accused God of not being fair.
Okay.
So all of this is to prove, the reason God is letting sin play out is to prove that God is fair and the devil is the one that created all the problems.
Okay, so in a greater sense, God is being judged by the universe. Yeah. But in an individual sense, our own cases are being decided.
Yes.
So it's both. Absolutely, good point. Okay, but and I like your point, but let me add something to it if I can. The reason he lets all this sin happen is so that his goodness can be vindicated. Yes, that's part of it, but it's also because he wants us to be able to choose. And he doesn't want to force obedience. He wants willing obedience. And the only way he could have willing obedience in the face of the devil's accusations is to allow the devil to show what he intended, so that the universe and man could see that, wow, that's what happens with rebellion. Okay, we don't want that, right? We've seen 6,000 years of misery because there have been all those choices that were wrong. And yet in that, God is working in and through it all, culminating in the judgment, culminating in these final scenes where he proves unequivocally that he is just and loving, it's fair, his government is righteous, that the rebellion was to no purpose. Did I say something amiss, or is it just profound? Or did it just, you don't have any comments? Okay, I'm sorry, I rattle on too much sometimes. Let's go on to the next verse. Okay, so that's the end of that message. So there was a message that went out, the first angel, and said, that gave the everlasting gospel, said, fear God, give glory to him, he's created everything. Before we move on, there are a lot of people in the world that don't believe that God created everything, right? At this point in history.
Yes.
So, what?
They have a choice.
They have a choice. So they deny the reality. They've made up a whole different explanation for how we're here so that they can not acknowledge God.
Which also happened around 1844.
Okay. Yes, when that Yes, the Origin of Species was written and published right in that time period. Several other. Yes?
If you're a child or a young adult that has gone to public school your whole life, you've only heard one side of the story.
True. So the
You
world.
haven't been exposed to both sides equally or even at all.
So around 1844, this idea was promoted in the world. It hasn't been very long, really, then. I mean, it's a little over 150 years, but it's really, in the history of the scope of the world, a very short time. And now most of the world believes it. I mean, really, it seems like, at least, like you point out, you attend public school, that's all you hear. And so it seems like an odd thing to say God created the heavens and the earth and everything that is in them. Wow.
You do away with creation, you do away with Sabbath, you do away with marriage.
Basically, do away with God.
Yeah, you do away with God, and you do away with with sin too, right?
And accountability.
Yeah, okay, so there's really no morality without creation. If we arose from the ooze.
But if you don't bake a cake, you need to lose your house, you need to lose your livelihood, you just need to die.
If what?
If you don't bake a cake.
If you don't bake a cake?
You guys haven't heard? This guy's been in a lot of trouble. He didn't bake a cake for a gay wedding.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's...
Yeah, but there's no accountability, but...
There's accountability for anyone who resists the agenda. There's an agenda to rebel against God, and there's pressure if you resist that. You can do anything you want as long as it's sin. You have an environment where it's like, oh yeah, do whatever you want. Well, be obedient? Oh no, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Isn't that what the world's doing?
But that being said, young people again, with me having taught in public school, we had books that we were supposed to read to the young people to expose them to different types of marriages and families and that sort of thing. So even though that man went through a lot of problems with his bakery, he was a tremendous witness to the world.
Yeah.
And for those young people that are growing up in secular schools that are taught that just anything, any lifestyle you want to live is fine, he was an example to young adults. Wait a minute, perhaps what I've been taught was not correct. Where is this man coming from? What Bible knowledge does he have that I don't?
Absolutely. That's wonderful. That's the key to persecution, isn't it? Because here he was not allowed to live in quietness. He actually had this conflict because he stood for principle. And because of it, yes, it was uncomfortable for him, but lots of people said, why does this man believe this strongly enough to suffer? Why is he willing to not go along with this? Why?
Consider him a present-day martyr of sorts.
Right, absolutely. I mean, there's different levels of persecution, but that's exactly what happened. So here he stood for what he believed, and people who aren't exposed to it are now.
Yeah.
Go.
It goes against basic human nature to suffer for the truth.
Okay. So if you're willing to, there must be some power there that others don't have.
Right.
Did you have something else?
I was just going to say, unfortunately, the media is very
One-sided?
unfair, yes, in what they present. So the media chose to present it on the side of gay rights.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another side, and many Christians spoke up for him and came to their rescue. But the media did not choose to present that to the world.
Mm-hmm. The truth is available if we're interested. These are interesting times. I was listening to a sermon, and the man that was telling, he told some detail other, and he said, "This is common knowledge to those who wish to know." And that just has struck me because there are lots of things that are common knowledge to those who wish to know. You can find out lots of things if you want to. I mean, we're really in a society where we can find out all kinds of things. Any book you want to read, just about, you can buy for very little and have it delivered in your house in 2 or 3 days. Yeah, if you...
It sounds an awful lot like what we've read in Revelation. For those that have an ear, let them hear.
Absolutely. So is it possible that the circumstances we see are ordainedly established so that we can choose? If we wish to, we can look into it. Coach, did you have something to say?
I think when something for God is done in today's current environment, there is a lot of negative media coverage surrounding it that is trying to make it look like something else. And it makes me think of diet and nutrition. there is so much readily available junk food. You almost have to go against the flow to try to eat healthy. And I think as a Christian, there is so much misinformation out there about who God is and what a Christian is, that you almost have to hunt and look for real and true Christianity. So when this person stands up for his beliefs and the liberal media just beats him and all other Christians up one side and down the other, I think we have to be going around to our community, Christians in whatever community they live in, and sharing the love of Jesus. And then these kids who don't know, who aren't raised on a farm eating their own wholesome vegetables, raised in the church, they realize, wait a minute, I've seen some people who are like this, and they're not mean, and they're not vindictive, and they're actually loving and kind. Maybe there's something to this.
Absolutely. So that behooves us to be serious about reflecting Christ's character. I mean, we've recognized intellectually that it's right, but if we don't internalize it, then we'll give a false message to people who don't have that amount that we have. All right, that was the first message, which we, I'm sure, haven't exhausted, and the bell has rung, so we're short on time. Let's go ahead and look at the second one. There followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. What is that all about? Is there anybody here who knows anything about that and is willing to say something? Not the whole thing, one aspect. No takers.
It's just basically speaking to the corruption that is in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Babylon is fallen. So there was a time when Babylon was not fallen, perhaps. So what is the fall? That great city, she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. That sounds really bad. What all is that? It sounds bad, whatever it is. First of all, there's a force element. She's making everyone drink something. So they're not choosing, really.
Intoxication.
Okay. So intoxication. What's the rest of that? What is this wine? Any ideas? I know this is an off-the-cuff study. We aren't looking stuff up, right? And we probably don't have time to.
As it said, she made all nations with force.
Okay.
The freedom of choice.
Well, there again, it's about the Sabbath. It's a Sunday Sabbath issue.
Okay. Do you see the Dark Ages described at all in that? Is that an example?
Well, to me, to know that something has fallen, you have to see both sides.
Yeah.
So when the truth was hidden in the Dark Ages, they didn't know any different. But when the Reformation happened and they could see the truth again, then they saw the error.
Okay, so the error. So I'm sorry, let you finish. You're done. Okay, I thought you were done. Then Okay, so error. So is it perhaps, if this is perhaps false doctrine? Could I say that? So fornication is being unfaithful to your wife or your husband, we can say, and things along those lines. And earlier in Revelation, we've seen women representing churches, and Babylon, the mother of harlots, and she's drunk with the blood of saints, that sort of thing. So we have false doctrine, and we're forcing it upon people. And that happened in the Dark Ages as well as now. I could elaborate, but Gene has something, so go ahead.